Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call the November 30th meeting of the Savannah Chatham County Board of Education Audit Committee meeting to order. Our first order of business is always great. We'd like to take this time to honor two of our members for their service. First, Miss Elaine Campbell, who is not with us this morning, but we have a certificate for her for outstanding service and lasting contributions to the Savannah Chatham County Public School Systems Audit Committee. Her years of service, January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2023. Thank you. And we'll make sure we get this to her. Our second certificate is hereby granted to Ms. Cornelia Hall for outstanding service and lasting contributions to the Savannah Chatham County Public School Systems Audit Committee. Years of service, January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2023. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. The approval of the agenda. All in favor? The agenda is approved. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 26th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any additions or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes from October 26, 23. All in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. The next item is the final adoption of the bylaws and audit committee charter. We have Mr. Holliday with us. There was some discussion, some good discussion at our last meeting about this. The final form of the bylaws and the charter are in your packet for review. I'll let Mr. Holliday just discuss any of the changes that were discussed. Are there any questions about the charter or the bylaws?
But I can discuss it if you want.
This modification to both the resolution and the charter are product of actually a review related to operational requirements of the district. And the primary one, of course, was that all employees of the district, which include audit staff, because they get a check from the district, are hired upon recommendation of the superintendent. Because in Georgia, it's kind of a peculiar situation. The board actually votes on employment, I think primarily because teachers are required in Georgia to have a contract, and the board has to vote on a contract. But whether you have a contract or not, the way the process works is that the superintendent recommends somebody and the board approves them. The board has no independent authority to hire people without the recommendation of the superintendent. This, the resolution and the charter were a little soft on that specific requirement, and so we went through and made some adjustments. The other adjustments were primarily bringing the thing up to date. I understand there may be some concerns or questions, and if they have any, I'm happy to respond to that.
Are there any questions?
So just for clarification, I think part of that confusion was about maintaining the independence of internal audit. And so, and I understand where you're going. Just so the public knows, our audit department, like every other department, they are hired by the superintendent, which is fine.
Recommended.
They're recommended by the superintendent. However, their independence is maintained as far as audits.
Right, and one way we've done that is we provided the line authority. We're also in the process of amending. Have we amended that yet?
Yes, we have.
We've amended the line of authority policy of the district, and in essence, we've placed the internal auditor as a direct report to the board president, which is not the superintendent.
Correct.
Superintendent is the CEO of the operation, so this, in our view, provides a measure of independence that we think is appropriate, and I think the board believes is necessary for for the internal audit department to do its job. So my belief is that it doesn't change the actual independence of the particular auditor as to what's being done. And of course, we have the audit committee itself, which provides another thing, and we've provided for recommendations, et cetera, from the audit committee on certain actions, so that we have kept it from basically having the rogue superintendent say, I don't like you, you're out of here. That's not, and that's never happened, actually.
Right.
But I think the board respects the internal audit department. I think it's forms a valuable function. My experience has been that the audits are honestly done and are not really a threat to any of the employees. They're simply pointing out ways that the processes can be improved. So I don't believe that these changes materially change what has been a very successful situation with the internal auditor.
Thank you very much.
And we hear things that we don't want to hear. We're not going there, but the reality is if you hear something you don't want to hear, the thing to do is change it. And this allows that, and it has improved our processes dramatically over time. Any other questions?
I would just echo that I agree with that. The committee is very clear in the audit charter that the committee reports to the board, the auditor reports to the president of the board. So I think that we've maintained that yellow book independence from management that we would want to see as a best practice.
Go.
That is correct. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the resolution or the charter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the internal audit department bylaws and audit committee charter. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The bylaws and charter are adopted. The next item is our 2024 calendar and meeting dates. And I'll let Leah go through that with us.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Before you is the proposed meeting dates for next year. We are continuing using the fourth Thursday of every month. That has been the practical day for our audit committee of the 2 decades I have been here. Now, as you know, on Thursday, November 28th, that is Thanksgiving. However, I wanted to leave that open for you all to decide, or we can keep that and then we can move it at a later time, whatever's most convenient for everyone. However, if we shift it up early, that might alter some other board committees that we have to consider, because there is some more of those that are going to be in existence. If not, we'd have to move it to December, and most people do not like December. So I leave it back into your hands as to explain why we had that Thursday date and for you all to decide how we move forward. But we need to approve this so we can bring it to the board in December, so we can have it on the schedule starting in January.
The 28th is Thanksgiving?
It is Thanksgiving.
It is Thanksgiving.
I
Well,
don't
obviously,
think,
we're not meeting on the 28th. So I think her question is, do we want to meet on this? Yeah, we are not meeting on December
We're
28th.
not meeting on Thanksgiving.
So would we rather meet on the 21st of November, or would we run it, does some other committee or meeting happen on the first Thursday of the month? And we could meet on what looks, according to my limited faculties, December 5th.
That would be a December meeting. And we've done that in the past, but the reason why we removed the December meeting is, one, it's right behind the board meeting, I think, or close to the board meeting, or to the due dates of things that have to be done by this staff for the board meeting. And so it's too close to a board meeting.
So we need to just put on, why don't we pencil, my recommendation would be we pencil in the 21st, and then we go from there, which would be the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
but I was thinking, is there not an earlier date in November?
That's what he's saying.
What, he's saying the 21st, but earlier than the 21st?
I can
Any
do
other
the
committee
14th.
meetings?
Well, we're already having one on October 24th.
Right.
And really the contingency of whether we have a full audit package to provide to you would be contingent on, how the flow of the work goes. So it would make sense maybe if we do the 21st and then just at the October meeting,
Make that
I
call.
can propose what we see being not approved, but a preliminary draft agenda for November, and y'all can decide whether you would like to have a full audit committee date or not. That would be,
So again, so we'll be approving this calendar minus the November 28th date, because we're not going to meet on the 28th, but it is listed here. So would
Right.
you approve it like that?
I think we would just make a motion to approve the calendar with the amendment to the 21st, understanding that that's tentative.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Does that work for everybody?
that'll work.
Well, I'll make that motion then. I make the motion that we approve the proposed calendar with the amendment that Thursday, November 21st be the last meeting of 2024.
I second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the meeting dates for 2024. All in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the FY 2024 Audit Department budget request.
Right, so in our previous request, so I,
One
oh, I'm sorry.
second. Before we go to that, because Ms. Owens had a problem with the time, and you have, other members have a problem sometimes with the time, do we need to look at that?
Right, that's
Before we
it.
go forward?
Go ahead.
You need to pull your mic, Ms.
Yeah.
I'm asking you if we need to look at the time of the meeting in addition to the calendar dates. Is there a suggestion that we might alter the time so that we can accommodate members who can't be here at
Well-
8 o'clock?
Yeah, I think what Ms. Underwood had come up with, I think it's a good idea. We're going to mimic the board calendar, board agenda rather, and so the informational items will be at the beginning, so that, hopefully that will give Ms. Owens the flex that she needs. So she'll be here to vote, but she may miss a couple of information, which also lines up with your board agendas, and that'll make it easier for the staff to get us into board docs and everything. So we're going to
Okay.
line up a little better, and with those informational items, that'll hopefully give her the flex she needs.
Okay.
We're going to try that. That's our plan A.
Right, and then for those that leave at 9, they'll just be,
Right,
they'll
yeah.
just have to miss that opportunity, yeah,
But we did take that concern into consideration.
right.
All right, Ms. Underwood, how much money do you want?
Okay, well, so this is, first, I'd like to say this is an increase to the previous one from the year before. But the one before was mainly for the increase of the internship, and then for the the rising cost of things that we've just never asked to increase our budget that has occurred over the last couple of years. When it comes to membership cost, computer cost, and so forth. So our increase this time is just this non-salary, just want to put that out there. We still have our 2 vacancies. Right now, we are currently working on one who may come on board in a few months. So we're still working with, we did find an applicant on that, so we are working with her. But the increase here for the 7,250 is one, to allow 2 individuals with the department. Prior, it was just one. But looking at what we might bring into our department, we were requesting that 2 individuals within the department to attend an annual conference based on the needs of the department and continue also with the virtual and local training. And just to let you know, we will be bringing in the next meeting our training plan, not only from a budget standpoint, so you can see the relationship to this money, but also to what we attend. We are required, even if you have a certification or not under the Yellow Book standards, we are required to have 80 hours of CPE time in 2 years, with 24 of those hours being government. So we have to, or we will be reported out of compliance during our peer review. So it's very important that we continue this training or, our staff development as part of our budget. Travel courses to cover any travel costs to those conferences. But we also see this as a buffer too for us because every 3 years we have to have a peer review conducted. And in that peer review, the district has to cover those costs. So we will take into consideration, come this February, just to let you, the committee know, we will have another peer review come in to review our work and provide you an update if we are meeting the standards. And with that, we have to cover those costs. So those years that, you know, we might say only one person goes because the cost, we have to pay for their travel costs and so forth. So that would be a buffer for them, for us to cushion and pay for those services. The dues and membership, as more employees come on, we need to be able to have them to have those memberships to the IIA or ALGA or any other auditing or educational memberships that they need to be a part of and so forth. And then also with the expendable computer, as more people come on, we need more computers. So that is the increase on that.
Mr. Moss?
So has there been any consideration? I really like the internship program.
Yes,
Is
that is
there-
going to continue.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, all right.
Yes,
Thank you.
she will continue.
Is that one computer or two computers?
It's in a the expendable computer, that depends on the type of computer, you know, that that usually is about two, which is the rotation of what we have in our office right now, looking at the 5-year obsolete, you know, technology status that we have in our office. So that's roughly about two.
Okay.
But of course, these are more transferable, so we can also transfer if other needs are needed, such as other hardware.
Are there any other questions about the proposed budget? Again, we're just making a recommendation to you who will actually decide the budget.
I would just like to comment, we spoke about this a little on yesterday. We are a very financially healthy organization. We are not on the brink of poverty. So if she needs 2 computers, we can afford that. I don't know where this mentality came from.
I'm with you.
With if you count East Blast, we're a $1 billion organization. So it just amuses me a little that, you know, but of course we want to be good stewards. But I think sometimes we might take that
Too far.
a little too far, yes.
Well, I can put some insight to that, and this'll, for Gertrude, you're new. Every year, we bring you kind of a benchmark with our KPIs to the audit committee, and one of the KPIs that we do is how much the internal audit costs the district. And our goal has always been to be less than 1% of the total cost. And so that's why we are very cautious about how much we ask for, to make sure that we are within that range so that we can reflect that we are within, we're supportive, but we're not draining the district of funds.
Yes, but when it comes to things like going to trainings
Yes.
where you can improve your effectiveness,
Yes.
improve your relationship to the
Networking.
district, that's very important.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
That's an
Yes, it is.
investment as opposed to just an expense.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly support this. So do we vote on this?
Yes, you need
Okay.
to vote as a recommendation to the board so that we can put this to the budget department and it'll be put into the bigger pot as a collective for
Okay,
our
so,
department.
and going off of what Mrs. Hall just said, are we allocating enough funds for staff development?
Yes, at
Okay,
this
all
point,
right.
from what we could see, we did a cost analysis of the ones we could see us going to in the future, or what has been in the past that we would have wanted to go to but could not due to the cost. We did a cost analysis of
Okay,
that,
all right.
yes.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this recommendation as written to the board.
So moved.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the recommendation of the budget for the audit committee, the audit department for 2024. All in favor? Aye. The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the East Bloss performance audit.
All right, state law requires that we have external auditors come out and conduct what they term a performance audit. for every school district. And I'd like to say that the independent accountants report says, in our opinion, the Savannah-Chatham County Public School System complied in all material respects with Article 8, Section 6, Paragraph 4 of the Georgia Constitution and Official Code of Georgia regarding expenditure of sales tax for educational purposes during the year ended June 30th, 2023. And these are our eSPLOST funds. So there were no findings. So the process requires that these kind of reports go through the audit committee for recommendation, just like our reports to the board, and then the whole board receives them.
Yes, ma'am.
To me, this is a very big deal. This is our fourth iteration of eSPLOST that we're in now. And when I came on the board, E1 had just been approved. I think the staff should be commended, the entire capital project staff. Is Ms. Kayla here? Did I see her? Thank you for your stewardship. This is very important, and as I look around the country, I'm beginning to see more and more school districts and counties are approving such projects because it's so helpful in terms of keeping the integrity of the general fund separate from needed infrastructure. So thank you very much for this report and letting us know that we indeed have done a good job on it.
Yes, sir. Any other comments?
Now that Ms. Owens is here, let's see if
Yeah.
she has any comments.
Oh, it's locked.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Good morning. So I'm reading this report right. This was an audit of this year, which included expenditures from all 4 eSPLOSTs.
Would you like to speak upon that, Rosalind? If you could come to the podium.
I mean, it's just a trailing amount of one, about 14,000, but it looks like it's all 4 eSPLOSTs are still being used.
Correct. Yeah. We were finishing up the last, I think, $14,000 of E1. But yeah, this encompasses eSPLOST 1, 2, 3, and 4, the expenditures for the year on the
Okay.
financial side.
And that total was $75,358,663.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I echo Mrs. Hall's comments. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report as submitted.
So moved.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the eSPLOST performance audit. All in favor?
Aye.
The audit is accepted. The final item on the agenda is the human resources audit.
Thank you. Before we go into the audit, I want to showcase we've changed the format of the report a little bit. It has, we're trying to, we tried our best to go into the presentation format that Dr. Watts wanted to implement. However, due to the level of information we have to put, we had to adjust a little bit. So some of the formatting is still in there as best as we could. But one of the key differences is we've added a rating. Currently, right now, in the back, well, not currently, but moving forward, we will continue to have the ratings in the back. It's your Appendix A that you'll be able to see. So that should put some context to whatever we find within our audits. That is the rating choice that we have chosen. But also in the process, we do talk with management during our exit conference with them and see if they agree with our same rating based on the definitions that are in the back as well. So we are working with management. And over time, we may change some of these as we discover, what we think is risk and not risk in certain areas, and we will adjust appropriately. But as of right now, these are the definitions we have chosen to determine the ratings. Does anybody have any questions concerning the rating? Okay. So the objectives of the audit of human resource activities was to determine the district's compliance with policies and admin regs related to human resources functions, review the job description creation process within the district and determine if the processes follow best practices for industry standards, review the hiring promotion activities of the district to determine compliance with procedures, and determine if they are consistently followed among all divisions of the district. Review the discipline practices of the district to determine compliance with procedures and determine if they are consistently followed among all divisions to the district. Identify the onboarding and employee training programs offered by the district and determine their impact on the human resource activities of the district and inform if informal performance check-ins occur for employee feedback and growth. So within this audit, we did identify 2 areas of risk. They include the monitoring activities of from the Human Resource Department as well as the employee discipline procedures. Our audit period was of July 2022 and October of 2023. Our field work was conducted during the period of April 23 through November. The scope of our audit included reviewing last school year's employment records, surveying and interviewing this year's school employees, conducting internal control tests of the processes defined within the district's board policies and regulations. All of these samples were pulled judgmentally unless otherwise specified. And for the source of the criteria for this audit, we utilized resources from the Society of Human Resource Management, also known as SHRM. As of now, being November, the district is comprised of 1,840 classified employees and 3,205 certified employees. Now, please understand, this does not include the vacancies that exist. These are the numbers that are employed at this time. And the Human Resource Department is made up of 47 employees with an average budget of $2.5 million. So the human resource activities, as I was explaining to the individuals that we were interviewing, we're not really auditing the department per se. We are auditing the human resource activities. And with that, I want to explain that hiring managers of the district play a huge component of that. And we say that because they're also the same hiring managers are the ones who also do the discipline. So we were looking at it twofold. We were kind of looking at that relationship between what HR puts out as what is required to do, and then what are the hiring managers to do, and what is that in the middle? We wanted to capture, that's where we were identifying the risks, was where's the communication, the training, the knowledge of what was supposed to occur. And that is why we called it the audit of human resource activities. So this includes, but is not limited to, the promotion, discipline, and onboarding of employees. The guidance for these areas is established in the district's policies and procedures. So for observation 1, we saw this as a high risk of monitoring activities of the human resources of the Human Resource Department. The district's Human Resource Division has insufficient monitoring controls and activities to ensure the policies and procedures of the department are relevant to the organizational needs, designed for equitable treatment between classified and certified employees, and are consistently being followed as designed. The functionality of the human resource activities within the organization must first be designed to adhere to any federal, state, local laws. This design of those actions should occur built internally by the organization. The district's board policies and regulations governing human resource activities define the structure of these activities. The district does not have an employee handbook. However, schools within the district have created employee handbooks for their staff. The SHRM serves as the industry's best practice for resources in all areas of human resource management. And for this audit, as I mentioned before, we used SHRM as a source of criteria of best practice. District management is not only responsible for the design of the human resource program, but also the monitoring of those outcomes for these procedures to ensure that they're meeting the goals and objectives of the district. It appears, based on our findings, the monitoring activities from the human resource management are not sufficient to assure that the district's human resource practices are documented within the board regulation correctly and internal procedures for staff, comply with board regulation, and are designed with equity as applicable between classified and certified employees. So, under the compliance with regulation guidance, the Human Resource Department is what we call the owner of 40 policy. It's really the board's the owner, but it's the human resource that provides the changes, that makes those recommendations to the board, and the board approves, because they are ultimately responsible for the policy. However, the regulation is of the responsibility of the district. And there's 40 policies, of which Human Resource Department is the owner of those. And so to assess compliance with the internal controls defined within these regulations, we selected a judgmental sample of 6 policies and tested those controls. The first one is general personnel. That is Board Policy and Regulation GA. This establishes the guidelines for hiring part-time, full-time, and temporary workers. This includes the actions of the Human Resource Department, Superintendent, and the Board of Education. To assess compliance with this component, we took a random sample of 30 employees to determine if they were approved by the board. We found 94% of the employees were approved as defined in this policy. Under Board Policy GAD, which is professional learning opportunities, this policy notates a practice of reimbursing employees that obtain degrees that improves the expertise in the employee. This practice no longer occurs within the district. This board policy is out of date. Board Policy GAMA, Drug-Free Workplace. This establishes the rules for ensuring the district is drug-free. This includes the process for random drug testing employees based on job description and employment with the district. To validate this information, we selected a sample of commercial driver license, CDL drivers, and monitors to determine compliance with the policy. We found the monitors were not randomly tested, but all the CDL bus drivers within our sample were drug tested as defined within the regulation. However, employees are not tested when they're absent for more than 30 days. We found this information within the regulation. Also, the Human Resource Division is supposed to submit to the board a list of safety-sensitive job positions for approval. It is from this list the employees within this job description are the ones that are yearly randomly tested. This practice does not occur. The Human Resource Division has determined the type of employee and conducts random testing from those employees. Board Policy Regulation GARH. This is employee leaves and absences. This policy establishes the rules for ensuring employee leave is taken in accordance with defined leave structure and follows all federal laws. To assess compliance with this policy, we assess compliance with the leave form requirement for documenting leave. This process is conducted by completing a request for an absence leave form. This form must be completed by the employee, approved by their administrator or supervisor. The information on the leave form should support what is documented in Kronos, which is the district's timekeeping system. We judgmentally sampled 30 district employees and requested the school site to send a minimum of 3 leave forms for the employees. All employees were employed during school year 22-23. We found 61 of the 170 leave forms did not match the information in Kronos, and 8 leave forms did not have a form on file, which means that what was on the form, then what was entered in Kronos didn't match, but then we didn't have a form to support what was in Kronos. Board Policy GAG, Staff Conflict of Interest. This defines the employee's responsibility to report any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest. The customary practice within the district is that a conflict of interest form is to be completed at the start of employment. Any changes to the employee's conflict of interest status are to be self-reported, and the form must be updated to reflect such changes. To assess compliance with this policy, we took a judgmental sample of 30 employees and reviewed if there was a signed and completed conflict of interest form on file. We found 24 of the 34 employees had a form on file as required by the board policy. Board Policy GBBA, Professional Personnel Qualification Duties. This defines the licenses requirement for employees requiring certifications. The policy states all applicants for employment in positions which require certification from the Georgia Professional Standards Commission must be eligible for the required certification prior to employment or the district's professional qualifications criteria. All applicants for positions that require licensure from the Security of State of Georgia must have required licensure prior to employment. I'm not going to read the rest, but I do want to say we assess compliance with this policy, and we took a computer-generated random sample of 30 certified employees, and we identified their teaching position and compared it to the Georgia testing license, and all employees complied with the certificate test. With job descriptions, they're developed to provide a detailed list of expectations of employees that they must fulfill to ensure the goals and purpose of the job is completed. A job description can also be used to determine salary level and pay grades, and it can be used as a tool to evaluate an employee. SHRM provides guidance for developing job descriptions, and this includes performing a job analysis, establishing the essential functions, organize the information in a standardized format, add any disclaimers, any signature line, and finalize them, store them in a secure location that is accessible to employees. The district does not have guidance for the development of job descriptions. The job analysis and desk audit process of the job function is conducted by the Human Resource Division, however, only done on request. The job descriptions are stored in 2 locations. One area is stored by the Human Resource Division that is not seen by other departments, and the other is on Acorn, which is the district's intranet. All employees have access to Acorn. We selected a sample of 52 job descriptions from Acorn for compliance with SHRM's best practice and determined if they were up to date. We determined if job descriptions were current by reviewing the current organization chart and Outlook email titles for the job and who the person report to. If they matched in titles, we determined this is a current position. We found the following. All job descriptions align with the structure of the job description as prescribed by SHRM. 44% of the reviewed job descriptions were not current. The repository within Acorn where the job descriptions are available to all employees is not updated when job description titles are changed or are eliminated. Before I move forward, can we ask for questions? Because there'll be, just in case y'all have a lot of
Yes.
questions. So we can divide that up, if you don't mind.
I have comments to make, but I don't know that, I'd rather wait and hear the
Okay.
rest of this before I make my comments. I'm trying to see how this audit helps me as a board member assess the health of our Human Resources Department. And I'm not sure that I'm looking for things like, how many vacancies do we have? We just had a meeting yesterday with the Finance Committee and found out that our fund balance is close to $150 million. But basically, that's because we have so many vacancies that if we did not have those vacancies, our fund balance would be pretty much in keeping with what the state requirement is. So that's something as a board member that, is important. My other comment from yesterday was how quickly can a new employee be processed and placed? If I come and apply today, how long is it before I'm actually on the job? So those are the kinds of things my ear is kind of listening for. I understand the importance of the things you're saying, but I'm kind of waiting to see where the rubber meets the road.
I just have 2 quick questions.
Okay.
The Acorn system, who's responsible to update that? Is it Human Resources?
And hopefully the communication team can correct me on this, but I believe it's each department has their own little area of which they're responsible for.
So there's no main group that oversees the entire thing? It's fractured, who updates everything?
Yeah, so the Acorn is the intranet of the school district for employees to communicate to their respective divisions. So the communications group has general oversight on the maintenance of it from an accessibility and a usage standpoint, but it is incumbent on the districts to take, or the divisions of the district to take their own ownership of those sites and use it as an effective communication tool. So, and by most assessments that we've seen when we're having transactional engagement with those divisions, we see that they are utilizing it, and it's become pretty effective repository for technology resources, administrative resources, workflow information. But again, the ownership really falls to the divisions when they have use on that for direct communication to the employees.
Okay. You have basically a little over 5,000 employees, not including the vacancies, and there's 47 employees in the HR department. looking at the standards from the society that you quote, it's best practices, is a little less than 10% the overall number that you have for human resources to have it more effective as we go through this, seeing like the new number of problems that are showing up? Are we lacking in human resource employees, or are we on the mark at a little under 10%?
That wasn't part of our objectives, so we didn't review in that area, but I'm sure Ramon probably monitors that and could probably give more feedback.
Okay.
Yes, this comes up a lot. Certainly, we try to be efficient, as we note, and as we move forward, we have added positions. That we added 3 positions this year that we hope will help with it, but we are not at a standard that would be at SHRM. I would say that when we say 47, just so we make sure I understand, there are 47 people in HR, but not 47 people that deal with the HR function. What I mean by that is we have nursing services that's out there. So we really have about 38, not 47. So within, it's more like 38 than 47 that are actually in human resources. But in the division itself, we have nursing services. So we have the nurses that are in cluster nurses, lead nurse, all of those things that support the schools on that side.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. When I look at this report, unless it's coming up and I'm missing it, do you audit retention rate?
We could if that was part of the objective, but we wanted to look at the controls around the processes but first, because usually that impacts the areas of which both you're questioning as well as Ms. Hall. That impacts the processes, and whether they're working effectively impacts the efficiency of what you all are asking, yes.
And I think
And
it
we
also,
have in previous audits.
yeah, and I think it also impacts your budget because you spend a whole lot of money in training people and then have people leave, and you spend money again retraining people and things like that. So that's why I think retention is important as well.
Yes.
So we track retention. It's just that it wasn't audited. So every year we do retention, report out on retention, report out on retention to the board, but it's just not part of this particular audit.
But then everyone then should understand that if we know we're losing people, but we don't know why, and we don't have a mechanism to turn it around, then it just seems, Leah, that you've been real easy on this.
Well, actually, the next section isn't, because this is where it impacts the retention or even the recruitment is the hiring.
And I would agree with that. I think when you look at the factors that are coming up that Leah's noting, that linkage between HR and human resource and the managers and what goes on in the schools, it does have the impact on the retention. I think Leah was noting that she's going into that.
Okay, Mr. Hediger, could you, because I can't remember us discarding policy GAD, can you recall that and refresh my memory as to why if a person obtains a degree, we don't compensate them for their higher standing and status? It's at the top of page 6.
Oh, yes.
You're referring to
Professional-
policy GA?
Yeah, it says that it's out of date, and we no longer observe this practice of reimbursing employees who obtain degrees that improve their expertise. Now, to me, that makes us sound a little nuts if we don't support things that cause our employees to improve their expertise. So we don't have to do that now in the confines of this meeting, but at some point, I'd like you to refresh my memory, because I can't remember us discarding it.
And I guess I want to separate that, Ms. Hall. That actually relates to professional learning. So there's a lot of professional learning that that's a reimbursement for a lot of what employees would do that was in the policy. What this is saying is I can't remember the last time we actually done that as far as the professional learning activity. So somebody does something, they go off, they get whatever it is, and we reimburse them for that. That's what this piece is talking about, which is different than, do we pay a teacher because they get a bachelor's degree and go to a master's? Yes.
Oh,
Are there
okay.
nurses?
Oh, all
There are
right.
nurses that have LPNs that go to be RNs, yes. Could we do more? Yes, we need to explore that with other levels. So you brought that up with paras and others. Those are things to think about. But we do it. But this relates more to a not necessarily something that's specific to what the district needed, but it could be something that an individual did. And so we just haven't done this piece yet. And that's what we're talking about as far as we haven't. It shouldn't, either we leave it in here and we go ahead and start developing something to pay people, or we take it out. I think that's what this point is.
Well, our professional learning never was able to confer degrees on anybody.
Right, but
this word degrees here, that takes it out of our whole professional learning realm. But
And I think that's the point. It's outdated. I think that's the whole point of this particular policy, is that as an HR, we need to review this policy and decide what to do with it, because it's outdated today. I think that's
okay,
the
so
point.
Mr. Hediger, let's put a pin in this so we can
Yeah.
return. 'Cause,
Yeah, will do so. GAD does exist in the current policy, so just for clarification, we're talking about a specific line within the policy, not the policy in its entirety. So the policy does remain. And we do have language in there that does state that the district does reserve the right of its sole discretion to reduce or discontinue payments under the policy. So there's a little flexibility on how that's managed, but we'll certainly bring this back to a mid-period review based on the outcomes of this audit. And I do want to clarify as well on the question earlier on Acorn. While it is a communication tool, the actual functionality and development of that falls under our business information systems, not the communications division. But it is definitely a communication tool to be utilized to engage with employees.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Board policy and regulation, GAG, staff conflict of interest. This is alarming to me. So for clarification, the only time our employees sign a conflict of interest form is when they first started with us, correct?
Yes.
This is not, they don't have to re-sign it every year. We are counting on them to disclose any conflict. So we're like on the honor system. That's disturbing. Because, anyone, and I'm not saying that our employees are dishonest. However, I can come work for you, and when I sign that form, I may not have a conflict of interest. Along the way, I may develop a relationship that is a conflict of interest because I am to self-report that, and there are no guardrails that can catch me. I don't disclose. I believe any other organization I have ever been associated with, we had to sign a conflict of interest form every year. This is just, and maybe,
Yes, sir.
maybe on the
And we
board,
agree.
on the board side, we're going to have to change this, but this is not a good practice.
And we agree with that, Mr. Moss. I think
Yeah.
Dr. Watts, in July, she and I had a conversation about several things that employees need to assert, maybe even twice a year, and that all employees will make these assertions twice a year on many different aspects. So it's not just this one that will be coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that concern. And in fact, that of the ones we had, 20% didn't have them. So even, and I know that's a random sample, so, I don't know what the real number is over the 5,000, but it's that, and combined with the extreme risks with drug-free workplaces. I mean, CDLs are our bus drivers. So we're not drug testing our bus drivers randomly.
No,
That-
they are doing the bus drivers.
Oh, they
It's
are
the
doing the bus
monitors.
drivers.
At the monitors.
Monitors,
Not
not
the
the
monitors.
monitors. Okay.
Who can
But
serve.
still, that's an extreme exposure. If anything were to happen, that's a, you know, that's a bullet to the heart for sure. Those are my only comments so far. We'll let you continue. Unless, Ms. Robinson, did you have anything?
Okay. All right, moving forward into the hiring promotion activities, there are operational weaknesses within the design of the hiring and interview procedures that impact the hiring process. The current procedures create an opportunity for the hiring manager to be unfair and impartial in hiring an employee. In addition, the district does not have a structured promotion plan in place. The district provides 3 sources of information for hiring managers for the hiring of an employee. There are the Employment Process Guidance, the Interview Process Guide, and the Talent Ed Recruit and Hire, also known as the SECPSS Hiring Manager's Guide. The information within the various guidance has duplicated information or focuses more on a certified employee process instead of classified. They're not streamlined to support the sequential steps to hire an employee. The hiring manager begins the process by requesting a job posting from Human Resources. The job can be posted internally and externally. Once the job closes, the Human Resource Department reviews the applications to determine if the applicant qualifies for the job based on the requirements in the job description. The applicants are released by the Human Resource Department for the hiring manager to review. There is no requirement within the Employee Process Guide that gives directions to the district's hiring managers that all applicants qualified by the Human Resources Department must be interviewed. By not providing this directive, a hiring manager can choose who they want to interview. Nor is there an explanation required by the Human Resource Division for not interviewing all qualified applicants. Therefore, there's a potential risk of impartial and unfair practices occurring. We were informed by Human Resources that there is a practice that is not defined in any guidance about not selecting the highest scoring candidate from the interview process. A hiring manager can provide a written request to not select the highest scoring candidate based on the explanation provided by the hiring manager, and the superintendent makes the final approval in this process. To assist consistency of this process, we tested interview selection packets to determine if the process was consistently followed by identifying if the interviews were approved as required on the sheet, accurately calculated, had the required reference checks, and if they were submitted to board docs for approval. We took a judgmental sample of 32 employees and found the following. 5 interview selection forms could not be validated for ranking because the interview tally sheet was not included in the packet, or a different version from the district standard form was used. 2 interview selection forms had a title change from the initial posted job position. 2 interview selection forms were not signed by management as required on the form. 5 interview selection forms had an incorrectly calculated interview tally sheet as required by the Human Resource Department. And 9 employees were not listed within board docs with the title listed on the information selection sheet. In our survey and interviews with hiring managers, we found 85% were not provided guidance of the interview process, but learned the process by word of mouth from other employees. Promotion activities. The district has no formal promotion process to provide an employee with a clear understanding of a career path within the district. SHRM provides guidance for the promotion practices within an organization. Promotion practices should include the following elements: establish criteria for advancement, communication of these opportunities, and then the evaluation of the candidates for promotion. The district has no criteria for the advancement employees. The district's current strategic plan, the Way Forward to 2026, has a performance objective to grow and maximize employee pathways and succession plans. The measure is to increase pathway participation and opportunities. As the end of this audit, no action had been taken to develop the pathways for employees or a policy to communicate the criteria needed for promotion. The district's board regulation employee compensation, GALB-R, refers to the promotion of an employee. However, it doesn't refer to criteria. It only refers to the salary and wage adjustment for the employee. Employee onboarding. The district does not have a structured and equitable onboarding program. The onboarding program differs between a certified employee and a classified employee. The pre-boarding and orientation components of the district are consistent for both types of employees. It is within the foundation building and mentoring of the programs where the program differs between the 2 types of employees. In addition, there are no monitoring activities conducted by management to ensure the activities that exist are completed with fidelity because the district does not establish an owner of the program to conduct such activities. Onboarding is a program that initiates an employee into an organization. The onboarding of an employee does not end with the human resource division, but must also include the hiring managers of the department in which the employee works. SHRM defines 4 levels of onboarding for an effective program. The first level is compliance. This is where the employee teaches the new employees about the legal requirements, the policy-related issues. The second is clarification. Onboarding clarification is where the employee understands their new role with related expectations. The third level is culture. This is where they learn to and understand the norms and values of the organization. And the last one is connection. The employee is connected to other employees and information networks. SHRM acknowledges that an onboarding program can be developed in a multitude of ways, but these are the key program components that make an effective program. They are pre-boarding, orientation, foundation building, and mentoring systems. So pre-boarding is the stage once an employee accepts the job, and start date where the organization gives the information to the employee what's to come and basic information of the organization. In the orientation stage, new hires are introduced to the working environment within the organization and their job position. This would include finalizing paperwork, benefits review, providing employee handbooks or organizational policies, and any other mandated training that's required. In the foundation building stage, employees are introduced to the culture of the organization and department in which they function. And this stage is an ongoing stage. The last component is the mentoring system. This stage can be formal or informal. Employees are paired with a mentor who trains them in their day-to-day functions and is available for questions about their job and organization. So the district's pre-boarding and orientation is coordinated effort between the Human Resource Department and the Professional Learning Department, which is currently housed under the Academic Affairs Department. The employment paperwork and benefit information requirements for employment is conducted by the Human Resource Division. The required training is provided and monitored by the Professional Learning Department. The various training courses are distributed electronically through a computer program called Vector and in-person training opportunities. So Internal Audit interviewed 40 hiring managers from various departments and school sites within the district. We asked, does your team ensure structured onboarding process plans are implemented for the induction of new people into the organization from the first day, first week, and the first 3 months? We found the certified employee within their department or school site was provided a mentor within the sub-department or their grade level. In addition, new teachers attend a supportive training program called SOPHIA. It is a 3-year comprehensive induction program for every induction phase teacher, including 1 year of intensive mentoring and defined process and criteria for, and there's also a defined process and criteria for that mentor selection. The classified employee is not provided with a mentor or a buddy to help introduce them into the work environment outside of an introduction at the start of employment within the department or school. The program for the classified employee is contingent on the approach of the manager. There appears to be no consistent program for classified employees. In April of 2018, the Internal Audit Department reported on the district's employee onboarding. We found the district did not have a defined onboarding program for district employees. We recommended that the district develop an onboarding program in collaboration with other departments within the district. This included identifying an owner of the program to ensure implementation, develop a standard training program, and establish benchmarks that are correlated to ensure employee growth in conjunction with the employee's performance. The district agreed to establish a workflow between the various departments which exist between the Professional Learning Department and the Human Resource Division, but the current program ends at the orientation stage as defined by SHRM. The Human Resource Division does not have a structured monitoring program of its human resource activities to ensure functionality of the program. Functionality of the program is current in reflecting the processes of the district, producing the outcomes to meet the district goals and objectives, and allowing for employee growth within the district. The potential risk impact of activities not reflecting consistency and fairness is reputational, which is trust in the district's processes. Overall, the risk impacts the recruitment, retention, and the morale of employees. Based on our findings, we recommend to the Human Resource Division that they establish goals and objectives for the division in the areas of recruitment, retention, including monitoring activities with timely reviews to ensure the goals and objectives are being met, and evaluate the processes conducted within the division and determine if the activities are aligned with SHRM's best practices in the areas of hiring, promotion, job description, and onboarding, and define these practices within the board regulations. Management responded to our recommendations. They are to establish goals and objectives for the division in the areas of recruitment and retention, including monitoring activities with timely reviews to ensure the goals and objectives are met. HR will review all personnel board policies and regulations to ensure alignment with those current practices and procedures and any changes that they may make. HR recruitment guidelines will be streamlined to accommodate both certified and classified hiring managers. One document will be provided. They will create a vector training related to the produced guidelines and interview practices, and create a vector training for Talent Ed as well. They'll create division folders for job descriptions on Acorn. This will help with each division being able to know where their JDs are in their area, and establish a structured and equitable onboarding program for all employees, which will include vector training on best practices for onboarding.
Any comments?
I have one. Once you've done the audit and you have these anticipated date of completion, how do you evaluate if these dates are being met?
All right, so once a year, we report to the board, as well as we will report to you what we call the summary of audits. The summary of audits is a collection of all audits, whether it's external reviews or external audits from our financial auditors, as well as internal audits. And in that, we provide a map for you to see what has been conducted or what has been completed based on evidence that management has provided to us based on management's actions. So we do, it's not a formal follow-up because we don't have the resources in internal audit with as many audits that we do to formally do a complete follow-up, but we do sit down with management and go through these objectives and say, where's your status on these? And we look for evidence to support whether it's been completed or not.
So let's say, for instance, on May 1, 2024, you have anticipated completion date.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on that date you do it or sometime within that month?
We do it, yes, so we do it by month. So in June, what we will do is we will contact management and say, you know, this management action plan, you know, is now past due. Can you provide an updated status? And then what we do is we update that form. You can go to the board resources under the internal audit department, and you will see that there's a current one out there, and we update that each month. So you see it as ongoing. Now, as audit committee members, you can always ask management to come back and provide to you that status as well. That is always an opportunity that the audit committee can request district management to do as well.
My only comment is I'm very happy to see on page 9 that SHRM has endorsed the policy of us trying as much as possible to promote from within. Mm-hmm. We're always eager to say we're following best practice, and I certainly will bring it to the attention of the other board members that this is a professionally endorsed practice and will help in our efforts at retention. If people have a clear path forward, I'm here now and I want to be there then, and they see what they need to do to be qualified, I think that can only strengthen us as an organization. So I'm very happy to see that we will be encouraged to try to make sure anyone who is qualified from within has an opportunity for interviews and promotions. So thank you for including that.
I just have an issue with this. This is rather disturbing, the hiring practice issues. I appreciate that we have this audit to find these problems. Your dates to fix these problems is May, which is the end of the school year. So right now you have the probability and this is my legal background coming out, you have the probability that you have hiring managers that do not have guidelines. They aren't adhering to any. They do not have to interview all of the people that were given okays, I guess, from the HR department. Also, when you did your audit, it showed that many didn't even use the tally sheets as they were supposed to. They didn't interview persons that were ranked per those tally sheets. So you set yourself up for discriminatory hiring practices. What are you going to do before the end of the school year if something like this happens? What safeguards are you going to put in place before the end of the school year?
Well, immediately we're monitoring those particular selection sheets. We can do some things right now. We're talking about when will we be finalized, and that's what we're talking about, May. Not that we're waiting to May 1st to do something. We can already start looking at the tally sheets. We can already start doing some of this right now, making sure these things are not happening, monitoring. So a lot of these things are happening in a, in a situation where now we'll be able to focus on it and look at it and pay more attention to what's coming through, work with the hiring managers, those type things as they're coming through. But May 1st is just a deadline to say this is when we'll be finalized. It doesn't mean that we're waiting till May 1st to do anything at this point. We're actually starting now.
Okay.
Actually, before, because we've been working with Leah for the past, several months on this. So you're getting a report today, but we've also been aware of it.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to make, Dr. Watts, I'd just like to reiterate Ms. Owens' comment a little earlier. If we need more staffing, let's get more staffing. These things take people to accomplish. And the more we can say, this person is responsible for this person is responsible for that, and there's ownership, then the quicker we'll
can
be
get
able to
traction.
get up to speed.
Absolutely. I want to reiterate something that Ms. Underwood stated at the very beginning. While this is a human resources audit, hiring managers sit across the entire organization. So it's not just a matter of Ramon's team and their capacity. It's the capacity, bandwidth, and competency of other hiring managers to follow through on things that have been established. Human resources creates the baseline, the resources, and the tools, but everyone else has to do their part. And so we have a significant amount of renorming, retraining that has to take place in order to meet these expectations. Yes, we have been working on them, but I feel strongly that we need some wholesale reset. And you will be interested when my 100-day report comes out that there's a lot of very strong alignment between this audit and some of my own observations. I did not do what Leah did. I've just been listening and learning. But a lot of the same themes emerged.
And my comment would be just that good leaders want to know what their units aren't doing well. And so this is a data point. This is an opportunity to improve. I think Mr. Holliday said, we don't always like what the audit, it's always not always good news, but it's good news that we got it. So now we have an opportunity to intercede and intervene, because this does feel, and I'm no lawyer, but this feels risky. This feels like there's a lot of implied and inherent risk here. So I'm glad to hear that we're working on it. And the other comment, there's no criteria for the advancement of employees that we can find, but I can assure you that informally people know how they get ahead. And that's probably not a good thing.
All right, observation 2, the employee discipline procedures. Our rating was based on our criteria in our Appendix A, and we determined this to be medium. The district's employee discipline discipline guidance is ineffective to ensure consistency of practices across the district. SHRM provides guidance in developing a progressive discipline policy. Their guidance is based on the importance of designing a discipline system that provides a consistent, objective, and fair process for disciplining, promotes open communication between the supervisor and his or her employee, improves employee productivity, potentially increases employee retention by resolving issues, and provides important documentation should a termination be necessary. They provide two types of best practices for progressive discipline procedures. The first policy is designed in the same format as our district's policy, with the key difference within the SHRM policy, which defines what constitutes performance or conduct issues that is not subject to progressive discipline. The district's regulation does not provide this information. The other policy is designed based on the type of misconduct. This policy outlines the responsibility of the employee, and management then breaks out the types of discipline to be given based on the employee's actions through groupings. The district discipline processes are defined within board policy and regulation GAM, known as staff rights and responsibilities. The regulation states SCCPSS reserves the right to administer appropriate discipline action for all forms of disruptive and/or inappropriate behavior, performance concerns, or other issues for which discipline is deemed appropriate. Each situation will be dealt with on an individual basis. SCCPSS reserves the right to determine the appropriate level of discipline for any situation, including but not limited to verbal and written warnings, written letters of concerns, serious concerns, and direction, suspension with or without pay, demotion, and termination of employee. Discipline action shall be effective regardless of the failure or refusal of the employee to sign or acknowledge receipt of written notification. These actions are not necessarily a sequential list. The regulation provides a breakdown of the types of discipline that can be given to an employee. The list includes the verbal warning, written warning or letter of concern, letter of serious concern, letter of direction or letter of reprimand, suspension of a non-certificated employee, reprimand, suspension, demotion, non-renewal, and termination for certificated employees. The regulation also provides guidance for the use of a professional learning plan or development plan. However, the regulation does not provide guidance on how to write one, who's to approve it, and where the information is to be maintained. And that would be whether it's the site file or in the human resource file. In the employee's human resources file. The district does not provide additional procedures or guidance or training to the employees tasked with disciplining employees. The manager is left to their own understanding of the language in the regulation to determine the next step of action unless they reach out for the Human Resources Division for assistance. This type of employee discipline system allows for a level of subjectivity that could potentially create the appearance that the discipline process within the district is not consistently applied in a fair manner. To identify the district's employees' perspective on fairness of the discipline process, we conducted a survey of employee staff. An average of 210 respondents answered the following questions. Are the discipline actions as described in Board Regulation GAM-R flexible for employee growth? The response was 59% said yes. Do you perceive the discipline actions are consistently and fairly applied across the district? Response was 65% said no. Are employees given the opportunity to respond to allegations of misconduct or poor performance before discipline is given? Response was 67% said yes. In our one-to-one interviews with 39 hiring managers, we asked the following questions. Are the discipline actions as described in Board Regulation GAM-R flexible for employee growth? Their response was 58% yes, which was aligned with the survey of employee staff. Do you perceive the disciplinary actions are consistently and fairly applied across the district? The response was 59% said no, so even the hiring manager said no. Are employees given the opportunity to respond to allegations of misconduct or poor performance before discipline is given? The response is 73% said yes. Based on a review of the discipline processes of the district, the current communication and implementation of the current program puts the district at a reputational risk of not being a fair and healthy work environment, which in turn impacts employee recruitment and retention. Therefore, we recommend the following to the Human Resource Division. Reevaluate the current employee discipline program of the district and utilizes the SHRM's best practice models for a progressive discipline system for comparison. Develop written procedures based on the new structure that includes but not limited to the ownership of the actions within the process, the documentation requirements, and the reporting format the information should be communicated, as well as developing a training requirement for manager to review and understand this information prior to implementation. Management responded that they will review and update policies as required to align with progressive discipline and create a vector training requirement for all managers every year.
Any comments?
I just have to laugh. That's a new vocabulary term for me. Reputational risk. That's a new. To keep,
Get that there.
but,
Yeah.
It certainly is a cultural indication.
Yeah. I mean, 2/3 of our staff, between whether it's 65% or 66%, don't think we're fair in executing discipline. That should be a wake-up call. That's, again, when we talk about how do we fill those vacancies, it ties right into, hey, should I go work there? We don't want to be that.
Difference between discipline for malfeasance and discipline in terms of performance.
Exactly.
That's a
Correct.
whole different
Yeah.
ballgame.
And I also think too, when you look at random samples, you know, sometimes that in itself kind of gives you a not an accurate reading of how everybody feels because it's just a sample. But it is an indicator as well.
Was this across, you had representatives from all departments or mainly academic or mainly?
In which one? The respondents of the survey or the one-on-one?
Are disciplinary actions described in board regulations fair? Yes.
Okay, so in the survey, we sent the survey out to all employees, and on average, only 210 responded to our survey.
Certified and classified?
Yes.
And how many did you get back?
On 210.
Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that was, because I did ask Ramon, like, when he sends surveys out, you know, is this a normal response rate? And, huh?
It's lower.
Yeah, it was a little lower. And when we do our risk assessment, where people give their feedback for the audit plan, we usually get about 1,200 or so. So, you know, I don't know if that's an indicator where they just didn't want to respond or wasn't sure how to respond, but it was,
And it was anonymous, right?
yes, totally anonymous.
We need to think of incentives, you know,
Right, it was totally
get people
anonymous.
to respond.
And then with the interviews of the hiring managers, we did that with just anybody that was of director level or above is, you know, where we interviewed those. And that's HR, academic affairs, operations, it was across the board.
So, in our finance committee meeting yesterday, one of the things that came up, and I think this is a recurring thing, is the need for professional development in a lot of areas. This is one of them. A principal could be a great academic person. They could have a lot of those skills. HR skills may not be one of them. Just to echo what Dr. Watts said, this is not just the HR department, it's anyone that is hiring or disciplining any of our employees. They need training. And I'm going to ask also, just in the HR department, how much professional development we have, in your budget, and how much, because, the whole area of HR is changing all the time. I'm going to reference, Ms. Owens here, legally, there are so many new things in HR, and making sure that we're up to date on all of that. How much professional development do we have there?
I mean, I think the cost of professional development has gone up. So a lot of our budgets have been what they are. And so I think the ability to do more professional development, and we're also getting involved more in in organizations to do professional development. The one thing that Leah focused on was SHRM. I mean, I'm a member of SHRM. I've always been a member of SHRM, certified in SHRM. SHRM is a recognized national organization for all entities. And so we've been focused a little bit on school-based entities like the American Association of School Personnel Administrators, the Georgia Association of School Personnel Administrators. But Leah's approach to looking at SHRM was correct in that those type best practices are not necessarily in the smaller organizations, if that makes sense. So we will be following, to the extent we can, those things that are related in SHRM. And also, I think that will help us, because it is a national organization, to be able to apply things. But when you talk about professional learning, professional development, there is a need that we are going to be increasing within the HR division to make sure that we're able to help the managers. It's very difficult to expand out to our 100-plus managers. We have over 300 supervisors, so think about that. When you think about principals, assistant principals, all of the other managers that we have, it's 300 people close to it. So that's our challenge, is also to make sure, how do we get that to be dispersed equitably, and also to have them disperse those disciplines equitably when they are doing them with the individual employee, which, as we're sitting here, there's many conversations happening right now all over the district with something related to discipline. So that's our challenge that we have to work through.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this report.
Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report as submitted.
So moved.
Been properly moved and seconded that we accept the audit report of the human resource activities. All in favor? The report is accepted. That being the last item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.
You didn't wait for the second.
We are adjourned.